This interview is being conducted for St John Scotland, 75 Years of Making a Difference. My name is Dr Sue Morrison and the respondent is Andrew Smith. This is March 2022 and the interview is taking place in Cove. Thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed for the project.
Pleasure.
For the record, would you please confirm your name?
It's Andrew Smith.
And would you tell me your age or just your year of birth?
I'm 55 years old.
Thank you. Where were you brought up, Andrew?
I was brought up in Edinburgh, born and bred in Edinburgh, and lived for almost 50 years there. I had a sojourn to Dundee when I studied maths and then came back, and my professional life has been based in Edinburgh.
Thank you very much. Would you tell me a wee bit about your family background?
Yes, my mother was a nurse. She was, again, based in Edinburgh. My father, a lawyer, based in Edinburgh. My father sadly passed away too early at the age of 58, having a cardiac arrest while he was at work. And see, my mother is now no longer with us, but she spent her life either nursing and then bringing up the family.
Thank you. I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, sorry, that's long. It was a long time ago.
Would you please tell me a wee bit about your employment background?
Yes, so I did studied maths at university and computing, and I work in data and analytics. Initially working for one of the large financial companies, and then for about the last 20 years of almost 20 years of self-employment and having a data and analytics business, which involves helping people crunch their numbers, and we also teach people how to crunch their numbers. So that's what we do on Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, yeah.
Thank you. How did you first hear about St John Scotland?
St John Scotland was always on my radar, or maybe for the last 20 years. I didn't really know what it was and what it did. Then, almost by accident, I ended up, Lynn and I ended up going to a St John event. Realised that there was a lot of people there we already knew, and we found out a little bit more. We thought this is something we could do together, have a shared interest, and then it sort of evolved from there. And now, 10 years later, we're sitting here.
Thank you. Could you tell me about your first involvement? What activities were you involved with?
My first real active involvement with St John was manning a tombola stall at a coffee morning in a church hall in Edinburgh, and that was part of the fundraising efforts of the organisation locally in Edinburgh at that time. And so it was hands-on, and it was productive. And we all worked together as a great team to make the whole event work. But it was that was my first proper doing something. Which I think is to this day is the for a lot of people the introduction to St John and doing stuff is the fundraising. That's if you're willing to get your sleeves rolled up to do a bit of fundraising, you usually, that's a good sign that some people are there to do a bit of graft and help the organisation. So that's how we started. That's how the whole the journey began.
Could you talk me through the journey thereafter, please?
Yes, it took having been involved 10 years, it was a bit of a slowish start, and then it kind of snowballed. So we raised funds. Yes, we gave grants out to various organisations, but we didn't really do stuff ourselves. So the Edinburgh area decided that we wanted to get into the area of defibrillators. And so we started that project off, out of acorns, oaks grow. Four defibs placed at Waverley Station in Edinburgh. We supplied two, they supplied two. We had had an event to launch that effort. And when we saw afterwards that within the first year, 18 months, that those defibrillators were being used, we thought, we need to do some more. Now, Lynn and I moved from Edinburgh to Cove 7 years ago. On the drive from Edinburgh to Cove, we realised we were passing through all these villages, and in the villages you saw telephone boxes, instead of the word telephone at the top, a defibrillator. You saw these boxes on the sides of community halls and things, and you're thinking, defibrillator. So we thought we need to do something about this. We need to try and get, thinking that Edinburgh, urban area, large amounts of footfall, lots of tourists. And to us, we just simply couldn't see the boxes on the wall. And so, spurred by the use of the defibrillators at Waverley Station and realising that there is plenty of big businesses and as well as individuals in Edinburgh who are wanting and they think defibrillators are a good idea. We needed to find a way to make it simple for them to provide funds to put defibrillators up. And where we thought we, as St John, could add value is sorting all that out for them. You might have a large company wanting to say, well, here's enough money for 10 defibrillators. That's great. But they don't know where to put them, how to order them, all that sort of thing, the sort of logistics of it. And we figured it all out. We found the walls to hang them on. We found guardians to take care of them. So if their act was simply that of a financial donation, we could turn around and say, well, we'll put that money to great use by providing that provides so many defibrillators, so many cabinets, and we'll get them up. We'll stick a plaque with your name on it, and that was how we've gone from that initial helping Waverley Station by providing them, the charity providing them with 2 defibrillators. They provided 2 of their own, and it's kind of mushroomed now, half a dozen years later, to having over 300, 325, I lose count, however many it is these days, defibs, public access defibs in and across Edinburgh.
Do you see that expanding further?
Well, yes, Edinburgh's a big place, and it's also not. It has some city centre areas of very heavy footfall, but it also has all the suburban areas as well. It has also some more rural extremities out at the Pentland Hills. So we were always conscious that we're trying to get coverage. We're nowhere near a saturation point. The job's not done yet.
What's the main challenges for you?
It's I'm trying to. What are the main challenges? I suppose in the very early days, it was all about getting going and getting momentum. At that point, people didn't put St John and defibrillators together. Nowadays, and I can remember we didn't have the local presence or public awareness locally that we do now. So I can remember the first time we ever did, as I say, we put these defibs out at Waverley Station and we did a can collection. Waverley they were delighted to say, of course you can stand at Waverley Station and hold your cans with your St John banners. And we didn't raise much money. people didn't really know who we were, what we were about. These days, we do can collecting at the tram stop at Murrayfield on a Scottish Rugby International Day, where we're kind of guaranteed good footfall, and we bring in, a very respectable amount in the collection, because people go St John, DFIBS, Edinburgh. This is going out into my community, and in the community you can see those yellow metal boxes on the sides of buildings, peppered all over the city, and people can make that mental connection. So it's always good when you're raising money if you can point to a thing and say, that's what it's for. And if you say it's providing a life-saving defibrillator, much like the ones you've probably spotted on the tram that has just brought you to the Murrayfield Stadium and scattered all over Edinburgh, people make that connection, which they didn't do before, and they now do. So I think we've built a presence. As I say, the challenge has been, it was getting going. The challenge was dealing with the logistics of finding the donor, finding the host, and putting the DFIB up. There is more momentum these days. And I'm not saying it's now easy, but the project has got a life, it's got a momentum, it's got a local presence, and that people know if it's public access DFIBs, St John, Edinburgh are they'll be the people who can sort that out for you. And so yes, we get these days we get people phoning us and saying, how do I? And sometimes it's not actually looking for a donation, it is just, how do I go about doing that? And that expertise of how to put a DFIB on a wall, how to assist a host that may have a listed building or something like that they need to, where do they site it? Where's the nearest electricity socket? Where's the, those sorts of things. That's the kind of thing, the knowledge that we've built up within the organisation, that we're now able to provide people, because we've done it, let's say in Edinburgh, we've done it over 300 times.
Hand in hand with the defibrillators is the CPR training.
Yes.
Which came first?
The DFIBs came first, but the CPR was very, very close on its tail. We always, from the word go, it was a case of, if you've got a defibrillator, you've either the donor and the host, we would provide them with bystander CPR training. If you can imagine that if you're a business that suddenly ended up with this yellow box on your wall, and you're kind of wondering about what it is and what it does, and you might be a bit anxious about opening that door, then we have since the beginning provided that free bystander CPR training to help demystify it, to reassure people these are automated defibrillators. They'll talk you through it. You don't, and how to under what circumstances would you do CPR, and how the defibrillator provides icing on the cake in those circumstances. And it's a piece of kit. It's a very clever piece of kit, but it's not one that you should need to be afraid of. And just giving people that reassurance, and that's so. We've done that from the start, and so we provide that to every host, every donor, and we also provide it on demand where people ask. We pitch up at local fairs, at libraries, community centres. People who ask. We've got a bit of a backlog at the moment because of the pandemic, and we've continued to roll the defibrillators out. So our CPR volunteers have got a very busy 2022 and probably into 2023, playing catch up so we can get round everybody who's asked for bystander CPR training.
How do you recruit the volunteers?
The volunteer recruitment there's a mix. So it's by the personal people that you know and roping them in. As always, that you look to your friends and go, I'll get you in this. I think one of the changes that's happened with St John over the years is that they have been more open to asking. There are a lot of people who are willing volunteers just waiting to be asked. And if you've got the right sort of volunteering opportunity, whether that be providing bystander CPR training or volunteer driver opportunities, we find the right thing. We're quite happy to advertise for that and select, try to put round pegs into round holes. Yeah.
You mentioned driving there.
Yeah.
I believe you're involved with patient transport in Edinburgh.
Yes, we're a bit late to the party here, but we are up and running now. Other areas of St John have been doing this for decades. We thought we would start. Then the pandemic came, and then we realised we're going to have to start this during the pandemic, and it has been done. So yes, we in Edinburgh we are very proud to be offering volunteer patient transport to renal patients at the Royal Infirmary. We're just coming out of the pilot phase at the moment, but we hope to be offering more opportunities for more volunteers and providing a regular transport service for more people who require just that little bit of assistance to get to their dialysis appointments.
Could you tell me a bit about how you went about setting this up, particularly during a pandemic?
Well, in other areas of St John, they've had patient transport vehicles, and they would go and collect a number of people and transport 2 or 3 patients at a time to their appointment. The big difference to the pandemic, it was one driver, one patient, and the way that we've launched in Edinburgh, we're using the driver's own car. So we have to, we recruit and advertise for willing volunteers. They go through a selection process, which checks their driving, checks their car, make sure that it's a suitable vehicle for collecting somebody in, and they then there are obviously background checks that take place. Once all that's done, they get added to the list. What we're trying to do is we want to get a regular face for somebody. So if you're going 3 times a week for dialysis, it's great to have, knowing on a Monday you've got this particular individual on their next appointment is this. It could be the same person, but you want to have, it could be somebody different. But you want to have that regularity, so you've got that. You develop that relationship with the patient as well. It gives them great peace of mind, and that if there's you also are an informal point of contact with the medical service there, just to say, well, maybe you need a wee bit of an extra hand today, or something like that, or maybe not having the best of days, or something like that you can pick up. So it's that personal. It's St John is a people based charity. It's all about people. It's about volunteers being able to give their time for people and helping people in whatever way they can, whether that be through a patient transport driver, helping people understand how to do CPR, understand how to use a defibrillator, and so on. It's it is a people business.
When you were setting up the patient transport
Hmm.
initiative, what kind of support or response did you get from the medical services?
So we had to go through, as you might imagine, there's lots of contract paperwork to go through. So we had to wade through that with the local health board, the the day-to-day is dealt with the NHS staff who run the unit on the ground, as it were. And so developing and maintaining the relationships there, they understand what value a volunteer patient transport driver can bring to their patients. And so, yeah, we have a couple of coordinators who assign people to patients and the patient journeys, and they work very closely with the unit administrator who oversees the who's coming in at what time. And
Does that work well?
so far, so good. WhatsApp is great. But it is a joke. But if if a driver has an unavoidable appointment, or they've got got a flat tire, then they can put a note out in the WhatsApp group. I can't make this run. Can you? And the other drivers are superb, and they step up to the plate and go, yes, of course we can.
You're handling transport for renal care just now.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to expand into perhaps cancer care or anything?
We'll respond to where the need is. If there is a need, I'm sure we're more than capable. We've proven we are. It's about getting people who need to be get from A to B. That's what we do.
You and Lynn have done an awful lot of work to raise the profile of St John's Scotland, particularly around about Edinburgh. Would you have any advice for other areas where they find it much more difficult?
I would never tell anybody what to do. Individual areas have got volunteers who want to do certain things, and that I think we'd always be there for advice. I wouldn't be telling anybody what to do, and that the different areas have different needs. They have different geographies. I think it was very clear for us with the defibrillator project. We knew Edinburgh had hardly any public access defibrillators, so we just went at that with great single-minded purpose. The patient transport is obviously a new one for us, and it will develop. So whether it develops beyond the numbers that we are providing the renal transport unit, if it develops beyond the numbers that we're providing currently for renal patient transport, fantastic. If it diversifies into cancer patient transport, we'll be ready for that. We'll just adapt. The market, as it were, our community will tell us what we need to be doing, and we'll take our lead from them.
Thank you. Is there anything you would like to tell me about either the defibrillator initiative or the patient transport initiative that we've not covered?
Nothing more. I would probably just be reiterating my points about we're a people-based charity, and we will, we are providing, whether it be defibrillators, we're using networks, friendships to get as many defibrillators on the side of as many buildings as possible. We've still got, we're 350 odd into the project. We've still got plenty of scope for more, so we'll still be using our networks and friends and to do more, we'll continue to work again with our volunteers and grow our volunteers to meet whatever demands there are for the future.
If anyone is looking for volunteering opportunities and they consider St John Scotland, what would you say to them?
Again, I'll go back to the people. If you've got an organisation that has a clearly defined purpose and being organised in a good way and volunteers supported the right way, with them, with volunteers feeling valued for what they provide, you've got a recipe for success.
Thank you. You've now been with St John Scotland for about 10 years.
Yes.
What would you say is your favourite memory?
My favourite memory, there are so many, and there's so many for many different reasons. When you pull something off and you get a result, that's fantastic. And there was a sense of achievement when we raised what we raised at that Tombola stall 10 years ago. There was a sense of achievement when we got some funds to put a couple of defibrillators in Waverley Station. There was an unbelievable sense when we got the cardiac arrest survivors together at the City Chambers and let them meet for the very first time the people who'd assisted them. Words can't,
Thank you. Moving forward for St John Scotland, what would you think would be the organisational challenges?
It's growing, and we need to be there as an organisation. It needs to be there to enable volunteers to do what they do. People, if like anything in life, if it's difficult, people avoid. But if you can provide them with the right volunteering opportunity so that they can spend their precious free time to do something constructive and life-changing for many in their community, then the organisation has a responsibility to make that as easy for them as possible. Providing them with support, emotional support, providing them with technology. I'm a technologist, I'd say that. But providing them with systems to enable them to do things easily. So as our numbers grow, as our projects grow, then we need to make it easy for people so that they can give time as a precious commodity. Money is fantastic. Time and getting people service, that's priceless.
What are your hopes for St John Scotland moving forward?
I think there's great scope for the future. There is, as I mentioned earlier, that in Edinburgh we did some of the things. We didn't do patient transport. We've just started, so we're very much new kids on the block. That's going to develop. Developing our, the CPR training alongside the defibrillator deployment, but there's all this growing stuff. So I think both locally and nationally, I think there's great scope for growth and development. We've got our core projects clearly defined, and that we can all focus on that and try and focus on having a uniform coverage across Scotland for that, for all the things that we do. As I say, it's in some way, Edinburgh being one, we did defibs and CPR. We didn't do patient transport. We now do patient transport, and that makes us it helps complete the jigsaw.
Do you have any more hopes for the future?
For the future, yes. Since we've been involved with the defibrillator campaign, we've felt it was a bit unfair that VAT was added to the cost of a defibrillator. There are some exemptions, but that's where you are a primary caregiver, or as a charity you retain ownership. But these public access defibrillators are bought by very often public or businesses for use by the public. The clue's in the name, public access defibrillator. So when an individual or groups of individuals come together to raise funds, they're raising funds from people's hard-earned income. Then when they come to the point of purchase of the defibrillator, they then have to pay VAT. So we've written to successive Chancellors of the Exchequer to say, please can you consider the removal of VAT on defibrillators. Now I appreciate hands were tied when we were part of the EU. We're no longer part of the EU, so VAT is fully is something that the government, the UK government, controls. We've been corresponding with the current Chancellor of the Exchequer, and hopefully we'll get VAT removed. He's certainly had enough letters from us. The removal of VAT on defibrillators is significant. It's a couple of £100. But if you think that roughly a defib, including VAT, in rough numbers is £1,000, it's for every, you could, for the price of 4, you can get 5. You know, we could have the number of public access defibrillators on the streets could be significantly more, 20% more than we currently have. So hopefully we'll see some sense. Cost savings to we normally get a response from the Treasury. It's a very stock response about, the public services need funded and taxation is the means to do that. Fully accept that. However, you need to think about the cost savings made when an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest does not result in a fatality. And also, it's shown that people who receive an intervention with a life-saving defib tend to leave hospital a couple of days earlier than people who've survived an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest through just CPR alone. The savings are there to be made.
Thank you. I think that's actually all of my questions. Is there anything more that you would like to add?
Not off the top of my head. I'll take your lead on it. But, if you feel there was enough there, but
that's fine. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. I really appreciate your time.
That's a pleasure.
Thank you.